evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on March 2nd, 2026, and we are calling to order the Board of Education meeting for Cuyahoga Heights Schools. The Treasurer, Treasurer, please call the roll.
Mrs. Apathy.
Here.
Mrs. Decker.
Here.
Ms. Pajeska.
Here.
Mr. Rossi. Here. Mr. Souchaki.
Here, 5 present, none absent. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues, and anyone having an interest in the actions of the board may participate during the public comments portion of the meeting, and if you wish to do so, please put your name on the sign-in sheet. A copy of the board meeting agenda is available on the website, and we do ask that you silence your cell phones during the meeting. At this point, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Decker. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Pajeska. Is there any discussion?
I don't see anybody present for the student presentation, so I'm wondering if our communication got dropped along the way. So I'd like to move that to another meeting because there's nobody here to present on the topic.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Anything else? Hearing none, Treasurer, please call the roll on the amended agenda.
Mrs. Decker.
Aye.
Ms. Pajeska.
Aye.
Mrs. Apathy.
Aye.
Mr. Rossi. Aye. Mr. Souchaki.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. At this point, I'll turn the meeting over to our treasurer to issue the oath of office to our new board member.
And we are conducting the ceremonial oath
Yes.
of office because we had previously given the oath of office to Mandy February 17th. So, Mandy, when you're ready.
I, Amanda Apathy, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a board member of the Cuyahoga Heights Board of Education in Cuyahoga Heights, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, to the best of my abilities and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter and to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Again.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to stop and do some pictures?
I was going to
We've
say, if
got
I could
family
do
members here.
Let's get a
one
photo.
quick photo with them, and then they can.
That'd be great. Let's
Okay,
go.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Take a short
Take
recess.
a break.
So I said, they know.
And now we can move on to, we're skipping section 4 of the presentation, so we're moving on to section 5, comments from the public. I see none, So moving on to 6, treasurer's business.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for items 6A, 7A through 7C for approval tonight in the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion for those items, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rossi,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Apathy. That was you, wasn't it?
No, but
No,
I
it
would second
wasn't.
too.
It was you.
It was me, it's fine.
I'm sorry, it was Ms. Decca. My apologies. I wasn't looking, I just heard a voice. So, okay, go ahead.
We have our financials 7A. I know we went into these pretty in-depth as we reviewed the 5-year forecast previously at one of our past meetings recently. These are set up A through Z. I'll just give a brief overview. A is our bank reconciliation, and for that, we have all of our supporting documentation behind our bank rec. Always balances out to our cash summary balance that we have in place. T2B is our cash summary report. That's from our accounting system that we have, the USAS system. This has all of our funds in it and the balances at the very end. We have our budget versus actual spreadsheet. So this is a tool when I used to audit. We used to create one of these for every school, and I just carried it over when I became treasurer. Very helpful. So it has all of our funds on the left-hand side, and then our beginning cash balances, any type of prior year encumbrances, our beginning unencumbered cash. And then we look at our revenue. So we have to certify the amounts to Cuyahoga County. And we change this multiple times throughout the year, and they correspond with our appropriations, which we board approve and modify several times during the year. We have letters next to the yellow cells that we have for any changes, and they're tick marked at the bottom with the description of those changes, just to kind of keep a roadmap as we go. We have our ending cash here, any current year encumbrances, and then any ending unencumbered cash. Any questions? Okay. Let's see. T2D is always going to be our lead sheet for the general fund. And these totals all sum and match to the 5-year forecast that we have down here. We're trending a little bit higher in revenue, which is good from what we had in place. And our expenditures match out to the dollar. We are trending better on our expenditures overall. The next couple are revenue, and then they follow expenditures. And we'll just go into one of our expenditure sheets that we have. This is for personnel services, the 100 object code. Just wanted to point out far right-hand side, we have our budgets, and we have the percentage. And then along the way, we have where we should be every month. So we closed January, and we're about a little more than midway through, so we should be at around 57.7% or below, and we are. So our two largest line items that we have, salaries for certified, non-certified, which would be rows 1 and 11, we can see that we're coming in under budget. We're at 55.1% for certified, and for classified, we're at 55.3%. So we're trending under where we're at, which is good. And it's that same methodology for every one of our expenditure worksheets that we have. So we're looking at our 200 object code, which is retirement and insurance benefits. And we can see for the month of January, we're at 52%. So we're below our 57. So we are trending lower on our expenditures from what we had in place, which is good. So, we have our athletic fund, our permanent improvement fund, food service. So the major funds, I try to break them out on these spreadsheets that we have here. Student activities, other grants. We have our grant lead sheet right here, prior year and current year, and then payments for board review. So all of those payments for board review, I'll just hit one of the checks that we have. We have our check number. We have, like our gas right here, the gas company, description down here, natural gas transportation, and the amount. So we have all of those as they go. Any questions before I go to the next item? Gotcha. Cool. B, we have 2 new vendors to the school. So we have our Ohio Association of Administrators of State and Federal Education Programs. That's for that federal grants professional development training. Did any board members want to go, and I can sign anybody up for that conference? That's the one where we're recognizing the elementary school that we have.
Oh, yes, I wanted to attend that one.
Gary,
Do we know when?
is that just for the day and no staying after? Or did you want-
I hadn't given that a lot of thought yet.
Okay, you can think about it and just let me
I
know.
have to look at the agenda, so maybe two of us can,
Can you
Sit
remind us
down.
of the date again?
Yeah, it is, I'll email that out. So I'll
Okay.
shoot an email to everybody and take your time and then respond back.
no
It's either
small
the
date.
15th, 16th, and
Yeah, I think it
17th of
is
April, or the
April.
16th, 17th, and 18th. It's one of those days, and the elementary is being recognized on the middle day at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe.
Okay, yeah, once I know when that is, that'll help me make the decision.
Yeah, I'll send that out this week. And our second vendor is going to be QuickMed Urgent Care. That's for employee physicals and drug testing, approximately $5,000 from the general fund. And then we have 7C, which is to adopt our tax rates. So this is created from Cuyahoga County, and they send us a letter talking about our tax rates, and this is something that must be adopted every year. So they say attached is the tax rate resolution, which they create for tax year '26. Please approve and send back by March 31st. And as we go, we can see that all they really do is change the dates over here, but everything else is pretty standard. We have our rates of inside versus outside millage, and I'll talk more about that later. And that's really it. We don't have any debt that we have to be concerned about. So for our inside millage, we have 4.1. Outside millage is everything voted on that we would have here. And we have our 1 mil of PI from our new levy. Our outside millage adds up to 39.6. Our inside's 4.1 for a total of 43.7. That 43.7 is reflective here. And this is a Department of Division of Taxation report that we have, 43.7 that we can see here, along with all of our tax rates for inside millage and all of our levies that we have in place over here. So just wanted to point that out. And those are the
These are,
items.
of course, the voted millage rates. The effective millage rate is
Okay.
quite different. What-
It is, yeah.
What is the effect? Are you going to get into the effective?
Yep, so the effective's actually on this sheet right here, our DT 515. And we can see that our effective for residential agriculture, which is class 1, is 28.08. It goes on from there, but each one of these levies has a certain effective inside rate. So they bring in the same amount of money as it was approved that first year for the levy. And then those effective rates get shifted because it still has to bring in, let's say it was passed for $1 million back in 81. So in order to bring in that same $1 million today, they have to adjust that rate, which is the effective rate. But it's interesting because we can see our class 2 is at 42.8, which is almost the 43.7. So it's almost in line with that, but that's because of the fix from the Department of Taxation for the error that they had for the omitted taxes, that they had raised our class 2. And I'll talk about that a little further on in the discussion section.
Okay.
And we can see that there are a couple levies that are actually capped out. So 03, 2012, and 24, the effective rates match. Let me make this a little bigger so everybody can see. Shift over. Let's see how it's 4.9 for the 03 levy, and it's 4.9 for the effective rate, while the 97 levy is at 4.67. So again, these were raised to account for the under collection, the error from Cuyahoga County. But these levies right here, the four of them, the one from 03, 012, and the combined levy in 24, they're all capped out. So actually, this fix is going to carry on into next year to fix this, because those are capped. They couldn't go higher, according
okay.
to the Department of Taxation. So it was something I pointed out to Cuyahoga County early on. So those are the items I have for approval tonight.
Okay.
Is there any questions?
Any questions for the treasurer? Hearing none,
No.
please,
No, sorry, nothing.
okay. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Rossi?
Aye.
Mrs. Decker?
Aye.
Mrs. Epp?
Aye.
Ms. Pajeska? Mr. Souchaki?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Moving on to treasurer comments and discussion.
Yep, just 4 items. So we had check fraud that occurred the morning of Wednesday, February 18th. Our bank Positive Pay security feature alerted us the morning of Wednesday, February 18th to a check with exceptions. We noticed several discrepancies regarding the check in question. I'll bring it up here. The address is incorrect. The check number is out of sequence. The vendor is not in our accounting system. The signature is not mine. So those are the ones that stood out. And this is the actual check that came up. So we can see that the address right here, and we'll blow it up, is 48420. So that's not our address. There's an extra digit in there. Check sequence is out of order. Our checks do not start with 26. Loveless Custom Graphics is not a vendor of ours. And the easiest one is, this is not my signature. This appears to be Dale Earnhardt, the NASCAR driver's signature. So that was an easy find. So we contacted Huntington Bank immediately and notified them that this is check fraud. We marked the check as counterfeit fraud with Huntington Bank. Because we identified the counterfeit fraud check quickly, no loss of funds occurred to the district. We filed a police report. Mr. Young and myself called the police that day. Filed a police report with the Cuyahoga Heights Police Department. We notified the out-of-states office as well of a counterfeit check. And this is my first instance of a counterfeit check fraud here at the district in my 8 years or so here. Back to the check in question. This is the check. And we have our email correspondence with Huntington Bank, and I'll go to the very top. So we had reached out to them and said, we believe that we've identified check fraud. They came back and said, thank you for taking the call this morning, and this is from Huntington Bank. This is a counterfeit check. You did exactly what was needed by returning through Positive Pay with a reason of fraud. The funds will return to the school in the amount of $5,199.95 in the evening, resulting in no loss. Please continue to remain vigilant and verify all exceptions. First bank of deposit on this check was U.S. Bank. You may file a police report supplying them with the full check image, which we did. When Googling Loveless Custom Graphics, this does not appear to be a legitimate business with the address coming back to a residential home. This is a counterfeit fake check utilizing the school's maker line, including our account and routing number. Law enforcement may request further details from U.S. Bank. So she provided some information to us there. So our controls and systems operated as they should. So, but it's just getting more prevalent. We see more and more stories of check fraud, so it's scary. I think on average I get 1 or 2 emails a week of some type of fraud. So somebody pretending to be Matt Young from an email address, or pretending to be another staff member saying, can you change my direct deposit information, or somebody pretending to be from the school district forwarding me an invoice saying, can you pay on this, or an invoice coming from a vendor saying, pay this. So it's constantly trying to recognize deception and filter it out. So we remain vigilant, but it has not stopped. If only it's getting more and more complex as we go. So,
Thank you for your vigilance and for catching that.
Yep.
I'm glad we have all the systems in place we need to make sure that we don't have these issues.
I think human beings are the most important part of that system. I'm
Right.
going to be honest. It's having people who are very good at their jobs and very
Mhm.
thorough and detail-oriented.
Do you know if it was locally?
No, our best guess is that this deals with one of our vendors who had since closed up and moved locations. The vendor was initially in Arizona, moved out of Arizona to Texas. We believe that the check got intercepted in the mail somewhere in Arizona, and somehow they took the legitimate check that we had sent to Arizona and completely created a counterfeit false check from that one, and then tried to cash that counterfeit false check. So they didn't do a check washing scheme where they take a legitimate check and wash away aspects of that, but that rather they created a counterfeit fake check and then destroyed the original check that we had mailed and then tried to cash that counterfeit check.
So I think they maintained a PO box in Arizona, and then they had a person that would come pick up their mail once a month, I believe. So either the person picking up the mail
Right.
or somebody who was putting the mail into whatever bin or container at this location probably intercepted that check.
So we did call the company, let them know what we've identified. So hopefully we've, cut out that loop of, any type of theft of checks. Plus, we're not mailing any more checks to Arizona. They're going to Texas. So that's our best guess of where it's occurred. So, second discussion item is the Budget Commission. So last week, had a meeting with the Budget Commission. And I sent this out to everybody just to kind of read in advance. It was a good meeting. But I did want to point out a couple items of that discussion. So these are the minutes of that meeting. House Bill 186, there's limited guidance that's been issued by the state regarding it. And uncertainty remains about inflationary caps and how it applies across school districts. And that's coming from Cuyahoga County that they noted. We did talk about the piggyback homestead credit. If Cuyahoga County was going to be one of the counties to adopt that, there's about a half dozen or so in Ohio that have. They had said that at this time, no, the county's not adopting that. We did spend a detailed time talking about the error that occurred. So I'll just read this. Letter C, omitted tax issue and rate adjustment. So a detailed discussion covered the prior valuation error affecting tax year 24. The county corrected the issue using omitted taxes, while the state corrected it through tax year 2025 rate adjustments, causing some double correction. So this is the first time that the county has acknowledged the double correction, because we had notified them on the phone maybe about a month ago, Mr. Seed, David Seed and myself, when I had found it and I had him check my work. We called them, explained to them that we think there was a double correction to the original error. They kind of said that that's not possible, but then I started pointing everything out to them, and then they didn't really have an answer, especially for the rates that were capped out, the effective rates. That was the easiest way to show that. So this was the first acknowledgement in writing that, yes, there's a double correction taking place. Several levy reduction factors reach zero, preventing further adjustment. We talked about that. We just showed that up on the screen. The fiscal office plans to remove all omitted taxes placed on Class 2 parcels and then correct only the levies needing adjustment. So that's their resolution to fixing the double correction, that they're no longer essentially moving forward with the omitted taxes. They're going to try to back them all out and just correct them with the Department of Taxation adjusting the rates. So we're going to have to remain vigilant in crunching the numbers. I'm going to have our legal counsel also be a triple check on that as we go. They said the goal is to have the corrections finalized for the second half 2025 tax bills, which must be prepared by June. I did request involvement in reviewing the final numbers. They agreed and emphasized that collaboration would occur well before April, May. So I'm going to try to stay on that. I did relay to them my long-term concerns. I expressed concern about the projected deficit spending by our district's financial forecast in the future, the statewide discussion about possible elimination of property taxes. As I noted that our district relies heavily on property tax revenue, as every school district does. They stated that the conversations are occurring, but there's no definitive county-level guidance that exists yet. And we had ended the meeting with appreciation expressed by all parties. So again, we continue to leave those open lines of communication, and I'll work with the county on trying to resolve the double correction to the first error. But it's getting very complex, and they even said the fiscal office will continue working with their system management to unwind the omitted tax corrections and prepare accurate second half 2025 bills. So they're using, my understanding is, their accounting system and the vendors that work with them on it. I'm just using Excel to find everything, just doing it by old school pen and paper. But they're, they have many people looking at this. So, but again, we'll stay vigilant, and I don't think a week goes by in the past couple months that we haven't talked about this issue, just where it's So it's very unique. And our legal counsel did bring up that maybe another school could have a similar issue like this with the county. So I don't know. But just wanted to point that out. The next item is the property tax collections. I had forwarded a story. This is the story about Westlake School's treasurer, Todd Hopkins. Todd right there. And how he's, talking about the low advances that were given by Cuyahoga County for property taxes that I had pointed out. So it talks about, and I'll just read the highlighted aspects of the article. Westlake School's treasurer, Todd Hopkins, advised board members on February 23rd that the district might need to sell some of its investments to temporarily cover monthly expenses, which is pretty scary because what that's saying is that they don't have enough cash in the bank to pay payroll or vendor bills, that it's locked in CDs or other types of investment accounts that once you break a CD, you take a loss on that. That's not something you really want to do. Todd goes, quote, "Right now, I've only collected about $3 million, give or take. In past years, I've collected much larger numbers than that." He's looking at an over $5 million difference comparing apples to apples, which is significant. Todd said that the difference may be made up with the county's March payment to the district, but he doesn't know that for certain. Same with me. The county's saying that they're going to true us up in March, but nobody knows for certain. So everybody's kind of scared at this point right now. And Todd also talks about, he said that about 15 school district treasurers in Cuyahoga County are working together seeking answers as to what will happen in March when school districts are supposed to receive their next payment from the county. And that was the email I had sent to Cuyahoga County on behalf of all of us. So that's this email right here. So Todd was included on the email that we had sent to Cuyahoga County. They give us kind of a standard, couple sentence response back. The reason for the lower than expected tax proceeds is due to not receiving approval of our real property abstract until December 24th, 2025, which I think has something to do with the correction, that they were trying to get that corrected on the values in the abstract with the Department of Taxation, which drew that out. As a result, the fiscal office and treasurer could not complete the tax billing process until mid to late January. So that kind of pushed everything back, which I think goes back to our issue that they were correcting. Try to get that done. We have experienced low collections through this time period. As a result, total amounts collected will be distributed at settlement on Friday, March 13th, 2026. But again, we don't know for certain, so it's a lot there. Any questions? And then the last item was the Board of Elections, and this is for Mandy. So I had sent everything to the Board of Elections regarding the new member appointment. And Corey from the Board of Elections came back and said, "Hi Matthew, received, thanks for sending, this looks good, but we'll let you know if we need anything else." We'll have their board issue a certificate of appointment at their March 10th, 2026 meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anyone have anything else for the treasurer? All right, we'll move on to section 10, superintendent's business.
Thank you. On the consent agenda, we have 10A, 11A through D, and that is it, believe it or not.
Ooh.
5 items.
Short list.
It's because I have 16 policies to go over.
Should have seen that coming.
Yeah.
Actually, I did see it.
Yeah.
I'll know that 16
I knew
is
it was-
close. 14.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for these items, please.
So moved?
Okay, by Ms. Decker, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Pajeska, I saw. Okay. Yeah, next time, a little faster.
have it.
You'll get there. All right, Mr. Young.
Okay, the first item, 10A, this is a memorandum of understanding with our Teachers Association. Article 9, Section B, Clause 1, scheduled workday. This is for our test prep, comprehensive test prep schedule that we have implemented since the spring of 2016. I was fortunate to be part of the group that created that, and it's been used every year since. Requires us to condense our classes down to 40-minute periods. We build in an additional period of the day. So we have a 10-period day if you include lunch, without changing the start and end time of the school day. So it is a change in work condition, which is why we have to require an annual MOU. The dates change from year to year, and even the times can change. So it's not in the contract, it's just something we do externally year to year.
Okay.
Until it's no longer effective, we'll likely continue to do this, and our results at the high school and middle school, specifically where we use this schedule, it's not for the elementary school, have been excellent ever since we switched. 11A, this is an agreement with Cross Thread Solutions. In the past, we used World Language Bank. This is a different company called Cross Thread Solutions. It's out of Solon that provides interpretation services for English learners who require it on certain state tests. This year we have a 5th grade student, and that student is entitled by law to receive interpretation on the science test and the mathematics test, but not the English test. So that is an agreement with that particular company. Typically costs us, depending on how much time is taken, anywhere between a total of $500 to $1,000. So this is a not to exceed $1,000 for this particular purchase. Letter B, this is an agreement with QuickMed Urgent Care LLC. For the past really 3 years, we've been working to come up with a more comprehensive group who can conduct our required drug and alcohol testing that we have to, by policy and law, perform with our drivers, primarily our regular bus and van drivers. So we're talking about physicals, we're talking about random checks, and then anytime that there's an accident, our policy says that we have to send somebody to get one of these checks. Those checks tend to happen anywhere from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock at night. Typical places are closed by 5 o'clock. It's always helpful to have a place open, otherwise you have to do it the next day. And then as well as having a very secure mechanism to share that data so that we can receive it and the employee can receive it in a very private fashion. So Mr. Burek did work with our transportation coordinator on coming up with this, and Megan Schwab and his administrative assistant. Do you have anything you wanted to add on this at all?
No, again, we also partner with our workers' comp company we work with, so just getting more alignment before we get to these couple of vendors. So this should streamline it and really string our data for our employees.
All right, next, this is the one that makes you sweat a little bit. It's a $720,000 approval for phase 2 of our roofing project. We have between 4 and 5 phases, depending on how quickly we're able to get this work done over time. It's taken us a little bit to get here, but I'll read some of this. I won't read all of it. But the district is proceeding with phase 2 of the roofing project as part of our capital improvement plan, which is specifically being funded by a $4 million transfer from the general fund to the permanent improvement fund on June 30th, 2025. If you do recall, that was associated with the potential cash carryover cap. We needed to protect our resources, and this was one way that we were able to do it. The governor did veto that cash carryover provision. However, the legislature can come back and override that veto until December 31st of 2026. So our funds still are not safe when we talk about them. Not only are we leery of our budget commission, but we still have to be leery of legislative acts that could override that veto. Regardless, the phase addresses 10 roof sections for both the high school and the elementary school. And all of these are high priority areas. You're going to find these are the parts that have the most saturation and require the most immediate attention. The district is using a cooperative purchasing contract through AEPA and the Ohio Council of Educational Purchasing Consortia, working with Tremco as our primary vendor there. They are a member of Ohio Schools Council. Ohio Schools Council was important in providing consultation to ensure that all parties were following the proper process. We've met several times to ensure that the process was being followed and that we were receiving the best, most responsible competitive bid. There is something called an RS means, which is a cost estimate using a third-party contractor. That RS means value was determined to be $754,000. There were 4 companies who provided proposals to Trimco. 2 were over the $754,000. I think they were at $800,000 and $1.1 million respectively. Quite honestly, they were irresponsible bids because they were not following proper RS means valuation. We did have Building Technicians Corporation at $743,900 and Centimark at $720,000. Tremco did determine that Centimark was not just the lowest, but the lowest responsible bidder, and that is who they are recommending. Throughout the project, Tremco will oversee the field advisory oversight and will provide information to Cuyahoga Heights schools. There are warranties involved with this as well. We anticipate the work to begin around June 5th, I believe it is, and should be completed by August 15th, hopefully before that. All the documents that you see there should satisfy any auditor who wants to come in and look at the process. You know, we do have a policy we're revising tonight. It's one of our policies on purchasing and bidding. There are 3 mechanisms to do that. One mechanism, actually, this is now all 3 we will have been using in the last year and a half to 2 years. One is when you have to competitively bid it out through a non-cooperative purchasing program, as we did with our Hillside project. We hired GPD to be our architect, and they facilitated that process. They held a pre-bid meeting. They posted in the paper. We received bids. We opened up the bids in the presence of the treasurer, and we determined the lowest responsible bidder through that process. All right. Another way was through urgent necessity, when you have something that just cannot wait until you can bid it out. I think we've had 2 of those actually. One was the fire alarm system here at the high school and middle school, and the second was our heating system over at the elementary school. It was $154,000. So that we also did through urgent necessity because winter was coming, as they would say. Game of Thrones reference for those of you that are, nobody's a Game of Thrones person, I see. But winter was coming and we had to get that done. And then there's this process in which we're working through a cooperative purchasing program who has already pre-bid all these prices. Ohio Schools Council oversees that, and Tremco has a 2-year contract with the Ohio Schools Council. So we've verified all that. I'm not going to open all those documents, but that is essentially the paper trail from start to finish with this project. And again, we have 2 or 3 more phases to go after this. The goal is by 2030, as we hit the 4th decade of the 21st century, to have all of our roofs tightened up. So we're well on our way. Yes. So there was in the AIA contract, which is attachment number 9, the last thing that we were really waiting on was in section, the last thing, section 21.13. Slowly loading. Says the owner acknowledges and agrees that moisture may have entered into the building prior to Centimark's performance of the work hereunder, which may result in mold growth. Centimark disclaims any and all responsibility for damage to persons or property arising from or related to the presence of mold, lichen, algae, mildew, fungi, microbe spore, mycotoxin, or other similar microbacterial condition, pre-existing mold, in the building. By accepting the agreement, the owner agrees to release Centimark from any and all claims the owner and owner's insurer, employees, tenants, and other building occupants or invitee may have as a result of the pre-existing mold condition or in the building. essentially what they had in there before was any other third party. And we can't control first of all, who's the third party and how can we control whether a third party goes after the group? So we, under our legal counsel, wanted that removed. They wanted it in. They agreed to remove it. They understood our point, and that was the piece we were held up on. And it took 3 weeks for that to work
Our legal
itself out.
counsel actually wrote that paragraph. Right?
Yeah, that's the paragraph our legal counsel wrote, and we put it in there as exactly as we wanted it. So that's all. It's just a disclaimer that it's not uncommon with roofing contracts, but they had some other things there like indemnification and things like that that just don't work in public schools. So thanks to Ennis Britton and Ryan LaFlame for helping us with that. The final item there, this is related specifically to the regional track meet. The Ohio High School Athletic Association provides a flat fee of $9,500 for any hosting site. They do have some specific items that are in there. So for example, sworn law enforcement, they do estimate $1,000. Fully automatic timing services, they estimate to be $5,000. And then the remaining $3,500 could be tied up in hiring workers to work the gate, people to work as officials outside of the OHSAA officials. So those are two specific items that they allocate money for. The rest, so if we were to pay for EMS, it would have to come out of the remaining $3,500. If we want to hire 15 other workers and pay them at the OHSAA rate, it comes out of that $9,500. Anything beyond the $9,500 is the school's responsibility. Okay, so that's the agreement to host the regional championship. Again, a very exciting opportunity as our student athletes who make it that far have an opportunity to qualify for state on their home track. And that just hasn't happened since 2000 here. So it's been 26 years is the last time that happened. And those are all, those are the 5 items for consideration.
Any further discussion or questions for the superintendent?
No.
Okay, hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mrs. Decker,
Aye.
Ms. Pajeska, Mrs. Appen,
Aye.
Mr. Rossi, Mr. Sucheki.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And moving on to section 12, section 13, superintendent discussion.
Just a couple items here. Your conference schedule is the 15th, 16th, and 17th. I just looked it up. Our elementary school is being recognized on Thursday, April 16th at 1:15, from 1:15 to 2:15. So middle day is the 16th, and it's at 1:15. That's the tentative schedule that they have on their website. I just wanted to clarify that. Winter sports are going well. It's exciting, very exciting. In addition to our bowlers and swimmers who wrapped up before this week, our girls basketball team, they were district runner-up, had an extremely exciting game on Saturday. I think we outscored them in the second half by quite a bit. I don't think, did we hit a 2-point shot? I think we hit 3-pointers and foul shots the entire game. And we took a team that won, they won like 70-8 and 53-13 in their 2 games prior. And, it was a 4-point game with like a minute to go. We lost by, I believe, 8. It's incredible how well our girls played. They just play with such heart, and so proud of them. Our boys are playing tonight in the district semifinals on our home court. That game starts at 7 o'clock, so good luck to them. We've got, I believe, 4 wrestlers who are wrestling in the district meet. I think we have a runner, an alternate as well, but we had a champion as well as others who qualified for the district. That's going to be this weekend for a chance to go to the state championship. And then we have 3 track and field athletes who are participating in the indoor state championship this week. So it's been another successful season. I know how much hard work our coaches, athletes, and the families, having had boys who participate in sports, I know what it's like to try to get your kids to every event, multiple kids to events, throughout the season. And winter's a tough season. it's a really tough season. There's not a lot of daylight, and there's a lot of great weather to enjoy. So congratulations there. Spring sports are right around the corner. March is Music Month. We've got the Music Man is going to be performed by our middle school and high school. That's going to be here in 2 weeks, 2 weekends. And Shrek Kids will be the week after that. So if you want an opportunity to come see our talented performers, it's a great opportunity. I know the elementary always sells out, so if you're thinking about going, you might want to look into getting your tickets sooner than later. And our performances at the high school have just been really well attended the last couple of years. So, and I know how much hard work goes into all that by the students, the sponsors, and then those people who volunteer their time to help set up and make those performances great. So I think I'll stop there because, again, we've got policies and don't want to steal anybody else's thunder tonight. So, just so proud of our students. They've just done such a great job, and they are, I say it all the time, they're the origin of our profession. Without them, there is no us, and I'm just so grateful to all of our students and those adults that work so closely with them.
Don't be shy about taking all the time you need.
Yeah, we got to brag about our kids. They deserve it.
Okay. We'll move on, unless somebody has questions for Superintendent, we will move on to Section 14, Board Policy Review.
All right, so I had sent a summary document. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review that over the weekend. If not, you have 2 more weeks before we would potentially vote on with the second reading and then voting to adopt these policies. Any policies that you feel needs more discussion, we can certainly take more than 2 readings, and we've done that in the past. I'll just provide an overview for those that are the 10 people out there listening. But I'm going to essentially read from this sheet, and if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask, okay? So policy 2431.06, this is a new policy. It's the name, image, and likeness, NIL, in athletics policy. As you know, this is, in my opinion, ruined the collegiate level, and now we're going to bring that to high schools. But it establishes a policy framework for high school athletes being compensated for the use of their name, image, and likeness. The Ohio High School Athletic Association, really, their stance was this. There were over 40 other states in the country that had already adopted it. And if you adopt it, then you can control it. If you don't adopt it, then you lose control. And people you want controlling the narrative control the narrative. And so the OHSAA really pushed, it was kind of interesting, right? They initially were on one side of it, and it was a hard no, and then on the other side, they were like, wait a minute, if we vote yes, then we get to write the rules. If we get to write the rules, we can have responsibility, and we can have parameters, responsible parameters around this. And so that's why the OHSAA went forward, and this policy falls in line with that. Now, we do know that there is a bill out there that would completely ban legally NIL in Ohio. But as with anything, if people want it bad enough, they're going to go where they can get it. And it just means that student athletes will leave Ohio to go where they can get the money at the high school level. So it's a tricky thing to try to navigate. But that's that policy. Letter C has policy 3440. Job-related expenses. So now I will say this, and I won't read through them all. So 3440, that deals with certified staff. Those are your teachers. 4440, that is classified staff. All right. And then, where is it here? I want to make sure I have all these that are together. 6423 and 6460. All tie back to new policy 6465, which is affinity, rewards, or other discount programs. So just a little background here. The Ohio Ethics Commission reversed its longstanding position that now allows public employees to personally use rewards earned during official travel, provided the rewards are earned the same way as the general public, do not create additional costs for the district, and the vendor was not specifically selected to earn personal rewards. So when we use our credit cards, sometimes there are rewards. You get fuel perks, for example, if you go to Giant Eagle. All right, so other credit cards have other rewards tied to them. It's not uncommon for staff to have to buy professional development. For example, if you go to a college and you have to take six credits, 2 classes to renew your license, the district will reimburse you for that, but only after you've turned in your transcript, which means you had to take the class. So we don't pay for your class. We reimburse you for the class. Well, in doing that, you may have earned some reward points. Sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes you have to pay for example, mock trials going to the state. Mr. Kosovich went ahead and I gave him permission, reserve the room. When he reserves the room, he has to do it with his personal credit card. Now, we very quickly go up to the treasurer's office and we do the paperwork so that it gets put into the school's name with the school's credit card. And we do as much of that as possible. We do as little personal use as we possibly can. But in the event it happens, it is now permissible, and quite honestly, it's next to impossible for any oversight unless we just say you're never allowed to use your personal credit card, of which I don't know how people are going to take college courses at the Cleveland State University, American College of Education, or anywhere else, because the school would have to pay for it, and then what happens if the person drops out? The school's on the hook for it. So it's just, so all of those are tied together. So 6465 is the new policy, but those other policies I just read, the 3440, 4440, 6423, and 6460 connect back to that. Okay, so that's the primary thing there. So that saved us a little bit of time. Policy 5112. All right, we're dealing with students when we're in the 5,000s. This is entrance requirements specifically tied to kindergarten and first grade that we now have to align with House Bill 114. It standardizes school entrance ages across Ohio. Previously, districts had some variation in the cutoff dates for kindergarten enrollment, but this law says it will always be the first day of instruction. So it's interesting to hear that there's some gamesmanship concerns about this. So for example, if your child doesn't turn 5 until, let's say, August 22nd in your school district, and they don't start until August 30th. No, let's say, yeah, they start August 30th. I'm getting my dates wrong here. August 20th. Let's go August 20th. You start school before the child turned 5, so you don't admit the kid unless you go through all this testing. But if you find a school district that starts after your kid turns 5, then you can enroll in that school district, be admitted, and then withdraw and go to the school district that you wanted to go to. Now, you think that that doesn't happen, but it does. Otherwise, like, all the professional organizations wouldn't be asking all these questions about. I'm just like, okay, it's August 21st, everybody. If you're 5, you're 5. If not, we'll test you, and if you meet the qualifications, you get in. But I guess there's a lot of gamesmanship around that. So anyways, that's the drama over kindergarten admission. 5223, we spent an awful lot of time on this last year. So this is release time for religious instruction during the school day. Our current policy, as it is right now, has a minimum that's no longer legal. We said we would allow 1 time per year, essentially. So what this is a religious group. The history of this, it starts with LifeWise, which is a Christian organization that will bring their van to your school. Kids jump in the van, they take you to an off-site location, and you learn about a religious lesson, and then you come back to school, and that's that, right? There's a lot of debate over separation of church and state and that type of thing, and whether we as private schools should be permitting religious instruction. Well, that battle doesn't exist anymore. So if a parent signs off and a group like LifeWise or any other And we debated this last year. Religion is religion, so it can be religion for God, or it can be religion for Satan, or something else. Religion's religion. So if you've got a little demon bus that pulls up and parents say it's okay to go there, that's okay as well. And it's not a battle. Like, that's just the way the parents have the right to make that decision for their child. And there are now minimums that were in law, okay, and I've mentioned that, and it actually got changed a couple times. So just to give you the history, House Bill 8, which went into effect April 9th, 2025, made release time for religious instruction policies mandatory for all Ohio districts, changing the law from permissive to required. It did not set specific time limits. All right, you just had to allow something. We allowed the minimum, 1 30-minute period. All right. House Bill 96, which went into effect on September 30th of 2025, which is the biennium budget bill, added the first explicit time parameters. It set a floor of at least 1 period per week and a hard cap of 2 periods per week. House Bill 57 then converted those hard caps into default limits that districts may exceed through board policy. The default caps of 2 periods per week remain in place automatically unless a board affirmatively adopts a higher limit. So release time for religious instruction allows students to leave school grounds for religious instruction during the school day with parental consent. Students attending this are not counted as absent, and students are not may not be released from core curriculum courses. So last year we defined core curriculum courses as anything that has a set of Ohio standards. Okay? And in looking at this policy, we understand that they have to be permitted to go once per week. We didn't put a top cap. It's just, first of all, we don't have a large presence right now. Second, if the default is 2, then that's going to be the default. We don't have to put that in policy because the default in law is 2. If you want to exceed, if the board says, let them go as much as they want, this is an opportunity to do that. Or we will just go with what the minimums are. All right? We know it has to be at least once per week, and the cap is 2 what? 2 periods at the elementary school, 2 units of instruction at the high school, middle school. So if you want to have unlimited, if you want to say if they pull up and you want to go during lunch or during a study hall as many times as you want, I guess we have that flexibility. But what we learned is that the more you try to fight this, the more likely you are to get into a lawsuit and lose. So we're just going with the minimums, and we'll deal with it as we deal with it. And we've defined what our core courses are, and you can go during lunch, you can go during recess, you can go during a study hall, but anything else you can't go during, and that's okay. I have a friend at Medina, he's superintendent there. They've had LifeWise there for I think 5 years. They've had no issues. So it's just as long as you're not being pulled from your classes in which you receive a grade and have a set of standards. So that's that. The next 2 are tied to the governor's merit program. So the governor has a merit scholarship program which rewards high school graduates meeting certain academic benchmarks with scholarship. It's a $5,000 renewable scholarship. It's a certain percentage of your student body, and I believe it's 5%. 5% can be nominated. So that varies from year to year. 5% of 50 is different than 5% of 70. There are also requirements that if you're in the top 10%, then we as a school have to present those students through a portal that allows those students to be automatically admitted to state institutions. So they don't even really have to apply. So there are some rules around that, and these policies are incorporating that. Now I will note, when you look at like the grading, when you look at the grading policy, if you were to pull up letter G, we are leaving a lot, we're leaving a lot blank, because we're not marking all of this. See, all this is left blank. We haven't filled anything in. This is in our student handbook. We automatically adopt this every year as a Board of Education, and when you adopt it, you're essentially making it policy, an extension of your policy. And a lot of these things can change, or, you know, we just felt it's redundant and unnecessary, and our current policy doesn't put, oh, an A is worth this many, and B is worth this, and a C minus is worth that. It's all in our handbook. In fact, well, I'm not gonna plug it in. If you were to go to, you know, our handbook, page 46, I mean, I could show you. Here, it starts to outline everything about our grading scale, how we do weighted grades, what it looks like across the board, water quality points, there's examples, and so on and so forth. It's all in your handbook, and it's unnecessary, in my opinion, to put that all in there, because everything that's not checked is already in the handbook. Now, you could say, well, if it's in the handbook, why aren't you putting it in policy? So, I guess that's open for preference, but it's not in our current policy because it's in our handbook, and the recommendation is to keep it that way. But if you want hard numbers in there, I will say that we currently, I don't believe we use this exact system in the elementary school of three. Three is outstanding, 2 is satisfactory, 1 is unsatisfactory. I don't know that those are what we use on our standards-based grades, so then that would require us to change practice.
Right.
And I don't know if that exactly aligns with what our practice is, nor maybe should it. So this is putting some tighter restrictions in there that I think are unnecessary if the system's not broke. Again, that's just my recommendation.
Good question.
Yeah.
We seem to adopt policies more often than we would like the handbook. We do it like once a year, it seems.
Mhm.
So if this changed as far as regulations or the laws, would we have to do a change to the handbook then?
So, yeah, we could do an addendum. The good thing is 3 years ago, when Mr. Burek was assistant principal, he worked with, well, we were also elementary principal at the time. You worked with Mr. Dietre, and Neola started releasing student handbooks that were perfectly aligned with policy. And so every year, as policy changes, the handbook the version of the handbook they send you changes. And they're showing you explicitly which items are influenced by changes in law that change policy. Now, if something were to change mid-year, you know, where they said you can't have minuses and pluses, and it has to go into effect immediately, well, then that policy then would supersede your student handbook at that particular point. But you could always do an addendum to the handbook separately. That way you have the connection between handbook, new policy, and then the practice that's now required. So we could do that at any time. And we have actually done an addendum from here to there, an addendi. I'm not sure what the proper grammar is on that one.
Is that
But it-
something you have to distribute to the families or just?
We put it in final form, so there's a way, like,
Yep.
we put it in final forms, it would trigger back out to everybody, and then we would make sure we keep contacting them until they complete all the sections.
Yeah, I know we've done it. I can't remember the last time we did it, but we have done it before. I just can't remember the last time. I've got too many years behind me now to remember all those specific examples. But the next policy is on, you know, class rank. We do still have class rank here. A lot of school districts have done away with class rank and have gone to the laude system, you know, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude, where they've just recognized GPA ranges. We still have class rank, and back in 2016, I put together a committee at the request of the board president back then, because the board at the time felt that class rank was important. Like, it's okay if people get trophies, so to speak, I think was what I was told. We came up with a different system, though. We wanted a system that encompassed all students, not just those who could take the most classes and maybe even never step foot on campus. So we came up with, again, through a committee, a 50-50 system. It's a combination of grade point average rank, which is 50%. So, you know, go out and be ambitious. Like, if you want to take all AP classes, you want to take all college classes, if you want to go to the Career Center and go into the Ramtech robotics program and you're a straight A student, go get it. We'll rank you based on your GPA using the quality point system, the number of credits you took, and we come up with a number. The other 50% was based on a national standardized test the ACT or SAT, and we used equivalents. We put that on a point scale. If you're used to playing golf, you know golf is the lowest score wins. So what you want to do is you want to have the lowest score combined between those two halves. So, you could be fifth in GPA and get a 36 on your ACT, and you could be the valedictorian. Likewise, you could be first in GPA, but maybe you scored a 20 on the ACT or equivalent, and you're not going to be the valedictorian. What we wanted to do was give balance, because we were finding back at the time students were not taking certain classes, they were not going out for certain things. Kids were not taking band, they were not taking art, they were not staying on campus, they were not doing extracurricular activities because it was all about throwing themselves against this GPA thing, this gamification of GPA. And GPA is important, it's extremely important, but so is being a well-rounded student, and so is following your career path. And if that was to the Career Center, go do it. If that was College Credit Plus, go do it. If that was a combination of all of it, go do it and do it all. And this allowed us to find balance in that system. If after those two come together, so you've got the local GPA, you've got the national standardized test, if you have a tie after those two, then you break the tie with your cumulative scores on your on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not the 720, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the state tests, and you take 6 state tests in high school. So if you took 6 tests and you got 5s on all, and you had 30, and the other person got a 4 on one of them, the tie is broken with the state assessment. So we've used a local measure, a state measure, and a national measure in bringing this together. And it's allowed us overall to have, I think, a really good balance in this. And we felt that was more effective than just having a straight rank or just doing away with it altogether. So that's where we've been since 2016. A lot happened in 2016, I think, right? So that was that. I just wanted to provide you some history. Going through budget preparation, you'll see 6220. This is just shifting from the 5-year forecast to the forecast. Standardizing with the laws that changed with House Bill 96. If you have any questions about that, you can talk to Mr. Muccio, but it removes the outdated reference to 5-year forecasts and provides options regarding cash balance reserve policies. The legislature attempted to cap district reserves in the last budget cycle, had to get that in there. They did not succeed, so adopting a clear policy language regarding reserves is recommended to support the district's current fiscal practices. And Matt Muccio helped with that. Policy 6320, I want to pull that one up. So this is the purchase and bidding. This expands the bidding requirements to cover improvements to real property on school grounds, not just school buildings. So it's not just structures. If you were going to put in a new sewer system or underground electrical, and it was over a certain threshold, you're going to have to bid that out too. You can say, well, that's not a building. Well, it's still improvement of the property. Or if you need to grade it differently so that water isn't pooling in a certain area and it happens to cost $250,000, you'd have to bid that out. The biggest thing for us, and we had requested this last year and come down on that a little bit. Right now, it requires, so for us to get approval to purchase something right now over $5,000 requires the board's approval. We are asking for that threshold to go up to $10,000. Inflation, since the $5,000 mark was set, Gary, you were probably part of the board that set that $5,000 mark more than, it was probably 15 years ago. Inflation is not the same, and what $5,000 buys you anymore in the world of school is not a lot. And so it's just something to consider. If we could take it to $10,000, then Matt has a checks and balances in place. At $3,000, we have to provide him with 3 quotes on a quote sheet that shows that we're doing our due diligence and not just going out and buying, recommending the purchase of something on a whim. But right now, over $5,000 requires board approval. If that could go to $10,000, it could be helpful in expediting some things, especially as things are starting to break more frequently. It's not uncommon for us to need to go out and buy a new pump, and that pump is $7,500. Not that we don't have an emergency clause where I could call up the president and vice president and say, can we, have these pre-approved so that we can make the purchase, but it could help. But that's, again, that's your consideration. If you feel like the $5,000 is still appropriate, then we'll keep it at 5,000, but it's something that we talked about.
If I remember correctly, we actually lowered it to 5,000. I think it was more.
Was it?
And that was all part
Back
of the,
then?
all part of the embezzlement
Sure.
recovery.
Yeah.
And then new procedures to avoid it in the future. I think we actually brought it down at that time. So to take it up means we're going back to where we were perhaps, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think last year we'd asked for 15 and felt that it should stay at 5, so we were like, okay, we'll stick at 5. And so it's an opportunity to revise again, and 3 new board members, and maybe you say, hey, you know what, keep it at 5 until we're used to what we're doing here, and that's fine. $10,000 could be helpful, but
No.
we'll follow whatever process. Like we don't take it personally.
I know the treasurer, like, we have the POs over 5,000 that he shares with us at the meetings, right? So like today, I don't think we had any, but you usually don't have a lot of those, right? There's like 3 maybe sometimes that we see,
Yeah.
so,
There's really no difference between 5 and 10. Because, I mean, we don't purchase a lot, kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, it's an opportunity to change it, but we're okay keeping it. It's up to you. Whatever you're comfortable with.
I'm just not sure if we'll hear about some of those purchases without, like, if they were not included as part of the minutes.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, potentially. Because, well, you would if it's over 5, but not if it's
Yeah.
over 10, which means now, if we're gonna go out and we're gonna buy a pump that happens to cost $6,000, yeah, you probably wouldn't hear about it, whereas before you would. At 5,000, you wouldn't.
That's my only initial thought, but we got some time to think on it.
Yeah.
Unless it relate, like, can you, is that like a clause, unless it relates to an emergency maintenance issue that needs resolved? Since you're referencing a pump.
Well, I think if it's an emergency, we have the ability to call and get pre-approval, and I think if it's really an emergency, I think we have the opportunity to make that call, but, it's really not gonna happen without us calling the president and vice president on those things. So, you wanna keep it at 5?
I'm okay if you want to move it to 10.
It doesn't, it's up to you. If you feel better with 5, we'll keep it at 5. Let's keep it at 5.
I like keeping it at 5.
The pause, the pause
Yeah,
pause
I
tells me
just-
keep it at 5.
Like hearing about some of them, because I don't know
Yep.
when Matt explains what the POs are
Yep.
for, and
So we'll make that adjustment, and when you see the second reading, Tracy will have changed that to $5,000.
Okay.
Okay?
I think how many there were between 5 and 10 over the last 12, 18 months would be a lot easier to say.
Then you have an
Yeah.
informed decision.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, perfect. All right. Matt talked about the procurement of federal grants. Like, this updates dollar thresholds for federal procurement categories. Micro purchases are now capped at 15,000, small purchases at 350,000. And a price analysis threshold of $350,000 that went to effect October 1st of 2025. I felt like we were pretty close to compliant with this already. I think some language changes maybe happened. I just don't think that we really changed anything from what we already had before. You'll just see some changes to language. 6425, is that next? I'm so sorry. No, 6423, that's the credit cards related to the rewards and things like that. 6425, that's the use of district's tax exempt certificate. In the past, if you purchased something, let's say you purchased supplies for your classroom at the elementary school, you purchased it in the summer with your credit card, and then you got reimbursed for it, you were not reimbursed for sales tax. This allows us to do limited reimbursements for those purposes, which we have not done, had not been permitted to do before. But there are limits set, so you just can't go out and buy whatever you want. There are limits and has to be specific reasons, so that's what that policy mentions. The vendor relations,
Do we get, if I may interrupt, do we get much of that?
we actually, I believe we give every elementary teacher, I believe, a $100 allowance to go out and buy classroom supplies, and then we reimburse them.
Can't give them a form to go with them?
I don't know that everybody takes the form. You have more experience with the tax exempt form.
Because there's a tax exempt form that I know I have to give it out for people from the
We have.
service clubs
Yep.
in Brooklyn Heights, so that they can make their purchases tax exempt. So I would think if you're giving them the $100, you can give them a form at the same time. I don't know if that's a problem or not. I don't know. Just strikes me
Yeah,
as an alternative solution.
sure.
Encourage them to shop during tax-free.
Which is,
Week. It's a whole
which,
week now, I think.
so the tax-free holiday got nixed this coming year.
It did?
So this is one of those little things that you don't know about, right? When you have the property tax reform to ensure that in the one bill, that the districts who are at the 20 mil floor weren't going to take too big of a hit, the state is going to fill the gap with the revenue from the tax exempt, from the last tax exempt holiday, and so they won't have one this year, so they can collect that money back. Yeah, nothing's for free. There's nothing at the state level's ever done out of the kindness of anybody's hearts. There's always an exit strategy, I believe. All right, I think we're getting close to being done. Which one are we on right now? Yeah, vendor relations. I believe vendor relations was tied into the same Auditor of State and Ethics Commission's guidance regarding reward programs described above. So that's going to be the same. You see that right there with the. Let's check. That was the big change there. 2 more to go. That is the policy for the rewards. Just a brand new policy. There were no really options to select, I don't believe. You got to level 1-page policy. We don't get those very often. The last policy is the artificial intelligence policy. We already had an AI policy in place. What this one is doing is simply integrating components of the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce's model policy, which they were required to develop by December 31st of 2025. We're not trying to overcomplicate this policy. We're keeping it pretty close to what we already had with some elements of the state's model policy. This is connected very closely to our acceptable use policy for students and for staff. So there's a lot of overlap. Some things we just didn't feel were necessary. Like, for example, unless the board wants to take a stance on that you're acknowledging the positive impact and transformative potential of AI in education, you want to make that declarative statement, we can. Otherwise, you can just hold it as, it's just not necessary to take that stance, because the second that something goes wrong with AI and all of a sudden it starts infiltrating, district systems, and all of a sudden we have fraud checks all over the place because Matt Hartman recommended Magic School and everybody signed off on it. I like how I blamed you for that. Well, the board let it happen, that was your stance. We know that it's going to be part of instruction. It shouldn't replace humans. And then as far as like the superintendent is authorized to support the use of artificial intelligence, I have to support those programs. I have to support all programs and responsible integration of technology, and follow the licensure code of conduct and the acceptable use agreements and Ohio ethics laws and all those other things. So it's just, I think because those were in the model policy, they were options. We didn't choose them. This is how it starts. This was not an option. The board aims to prepare students for success, encourage innovation of classroom instruction, and embrace opportunities for operational efficiency, blah, 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 blah. That is the statement. These were not necessary to put in. We didn't think these were necessary to put in because we know how language changes. We have policies that had still referenced MySpace until last year. When you get into very specific definitions that may or may not, like why do we need to define open AI? It just may not be necessary. Personally identifiable information is already part of the acceptable use agreements. These, are not optional. These are just, what's artificial intelligence? How's that different? How's generative AI a specific type? And what is an AI tool? Getting into any more specific definitions we felt was just unnecessary because definitions tend to change. So that's essentially, the AI policy. We're putting a lot on, we're defining what the guardrails are at the elementary, the middle, and high school level. And then it's up for the classroom teacher to make the decision of whether they are going to take that step. So for example, we don't see there to be a use for artificial intelligence in the elementary school until at a minimum you get to maybe 4th and 5th grade, in which we are using very controlled, Magic School has guardrails. We're operating within our little environment. Neonet has gotten their hands on Magic School to ensure that we have the proper guardrails up. And it would be very limited and teacher guided at just the later elementary years. Get into the middle level, you may be starting to use some of these AI tools, but again, it's not just go use it, go do your own thing. At the high school, it's kind of expected in certain subjects that students are going to probably be using AI, so you might as well start jumping in and playing the game. Now, maybe certain things like maybe in mathematics, if you jump in and use AI, it's probably just solving your homework problems for you. So you may not be supporting AI as much as somebody who's teaching an elective class. If I were teaching a chemistry class right now, like I did for so many years, I would have students designing their own labs, lab procedures, exploring safety, turning that into me so I could review it to make sure that the student's not going to clear out the school some toxic combination. But it'd be a great way for students to learn, to create, to develop in those classes that have that ability. But we're not going to require anybody to use it. But just know that your students probably are going to use it. They probably have a device that's not their Chromebook, and they go home, and they're going to use it. So let's not make the mistakes we made with social media. But if they are going to use it in school, we are controlling what that environment looks like to the best of our abilities. We know they'll get around it. They always do.
Right.
Always do. So I'm so sorry to take the time, but policies, I think it's one of the foundational functions of the Board of Education is to ensure that our policies are in line with the law and then community expectations as well. But that's the first reading.
We don't write the law, but we do bring the community expectations to
You
your
do.
attention.
You do.
That's our job.
Yeah, and we've been advised not to change the contents of the policy without the review of legal counsel because Neola has several law firms that help develop these policies, so they have the legal stamps of approval. If you start adding your own language without the stamp of approval from a law firm, then you don't have necessarily the protections or the legal footing if somebody were to break a policy that has been fabricated outside of the realm of the legal world. So it's just a little caveat there.
Okay. Any further discussion on policy?
Yeah, if over the next 2 weeks you have any input or anything you want to consider, or if you want to pause one of these policies and say, let's take a third reading, then we can do that. The next time they'll be presented for adoption, and if you want to pause one of those, we can always pull one out, and we would vote on all the ones except for the one we pulled out for a third reading, or a fourth reading, or a fifth reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. All right, moving on to section 15, board discussion and comments. Anyone have any discussion points or comments? I have a whole stack. I didn't necessarily want to start, but I can. Okay, Career Center. We have a lot of stuff going on at the Career Center that I'd like to bring to your attention. The The National Technical Honor Society will have their induction ceremony on March 18th at 7 o'clock. I unfortunately will be out of town and will not be attending. So if one of you would like to attend to recognize or to be there when we have 3 Cuyahoga Heights students recognized, let me know. And you can certainly attend in my place. Davinia Dinardis, Bryce Rush, and Aiden Flynn are the 3 people on the list. So if anybody would
I'll
like
be
to
there.
be there,
I'll be there.
March 18th, 7 o'clock. And I saw Mr. Young nodding his head,
I'll be there. Yeah.
Good, good, thank you. Speaking of things going on at the Career Center, on this Thursday, from 3 to 5, there's a job fair at the Career Center. It's advertised throughout the Career Center community, right, in all of their publications. I occasionally go to those. I don't go to every one, but I do go to some of them because it's interesting to walk the halls and to see who is there and to talk to them and say, are you finding students from here with the skills that you're looking for? Right? And to bring that information back if it's, no, I'm not, or yes, I am, this is great, to bring that kind of information back to the administration. So I personally will go to that. You certainly are welcome to attend as well. If you're going to do that, I recommend you show up at least 2:30, because if you try to get there at 3, you will be stuck in a 15-minute to half-hour traffic jam trying to get in. I know, I thought I was going to get there early enough one day, and I ended up being late because I sat. Of course, you can't do it now because the Wallings exit is currently it's currently closed from the north, but I got off that exit and I got across the bridge and I didn't get very far, and it was creeping, even with the police directing traffic, I had to creep into the back and parked out in the grass lot in the rear of there's no grass lot. Parked on the asphalt lot, which hasn't been maintained in many years, and it's all broken up because that's all there was available. It can get pretty crowded there during these special events. Anyhow, enough of that. At our last meeting, a couple of things came up that were pretty interesting. One of them is the 5-year forecast. I have, for the last several years, the Career Center has been using general fund money to update the facility. We don't have a PI levy. We're doing it out of general fund. We've been able to do that without going into deficit spending for any one year. Thanks to the changes from the state of Ohio, we cannot do that anymore. So the next 3 or 4 years are going to show deficit spending, that is, spending more than's coming in. It doesn't take us into any sort of an emergency situation. It's not, when the updates are done, in about 4 to 5 years, we'll go back. It is projected that we will be back to spending only the money that's coming in and not spending ahead of what we have. In other words, investing, pulling from our savings on a regular basis. But at the same time, we should have buildings that we estimate will be sufficient to meet all of the needs, that will be fully updated, that will have HVAC throughout, functioning, new, that will have, everything in the building will be less than 5, any mechanical system will be no more than 5 years old anywhere in the building. And therefore, they ought to all have 20-year or more lives. And that's the goal, that's what we're trying to do. We had a little bit of an increase in income and immediately started putting it into what do we need to do in this building to bring it up to snuff, what do we need to expand. And then we brought in a couple of new courses. If you haven't been there yet to see the new classroom space, you ought to make an effort to get out there and check it out. It's quite a large section that's been added to the building. So a lot has been going on. I do have a copy of the, it's still marked 5-year forecast.
It's changed.
But it actually goes out more than 5 years is what he did. He actually goes out, well, no, he goes out a full 5 years. But if anybody would like to see this, I do have a copy here. It does show that we are spending more than we're taking in over the next 5 years, but that should get us into excellent condition at that point for the next 20. So that is here. A couple of things that came up during our meeting. The state of Ohio has changed the designation of one of our programs, the STNA program, State Tested Nurses Aid, is now known as the NA or Nurses Aid Program. Not sure why they changed it, not sure why they do a lot of things at the state level, but they chose to do that. We did have, I think we talked about it in one of our meetings in last month, the power generator that's being installed this summer so that we can keep the building running for summer classes while they're putting in all new power supply systems. So we're putting in a generator, and then we'll be able to keep that generator for emergencies going forward. The price of that has dropped over $100,000. So that was good. One of our board members is celebrating his 15 years at the OSBA convention that's coming up. I wanted to go to that, and then I realized that I'm going to be out of town, so I will not be there to help him celebrate his 15 years. However, I should be getting 15 years next year or the year after. I should hit that level myself pretty soon. That same person has started a scholarship fund. He and his wife have started a scholarship fund for students graduating from the Career Center. And I don't have a lot of information on that. I will try to get more before our next meeting. But that's the first time I've heard of that a board member has established, at the Career Center, establishing a scholarship fund. So it's Jim Virost is his name, and he's from Nordonia. And Jim is the only board member on the Career Center board who was there when I got there, and he's still there. All the other board members have turned over since then. Our turnover there is a lot higher than it is here. We may feel, we have 3 new board members here. But before we had 3 new board members, we only had 1 in the last 5 years, I think, right? Suddenly we have a major turnover here. Well, there, 1 board member turns over every year because it's a rotating member. And then our years are 3-year terms and not 4. So that increases the turnover. And then there's the fact that somebody might decide to appoint somebody else. So, or some people say this is too much because you tend to pull people from business and industry, and they realize, I have a big job to do, and although I'm happy to help, this has gotten to be a bit much. So they tend to turn over more quickly than we do here, in general. So, let me see, what else did I have? We had the bullying report. There were 2 cases of bullying in the first semester this year. Bullying can be an issue at the Career Center because we do pull from 8 districts. So there can be some tension because you do not have the same type of environment that we are used to here. So we do have a little trouble with bullying. It never has been significant. The worst I've ever seen was 1 year where there were 4. There was 3 in one semester and 2 in each semester. So this year we had 2, which is fairly typical. There is a new 5-year academic plan for nursing. If anybody would like to see this handout, I'd be happy to share it with you. When I first got to the Career Center, one of the most frequent topics of conversation at board meetings was the fact that the nursing school, the evening school, had to be supported by the day school. because we did not have enough students, and we weren't, or charging an appropriate amount, and we had to support, I think it was like, could have been as much as $100,000 a year coming out of the general budget to support the night school. That has turned around, and now the night school is actually bringing in more money than it expends, which allows them to put more money into other areas of the nursing program. And that has not happened by accident. That happened because of changes at the superintendent's level and changes that the superintendent made to bring in stronger individuals into those departments to turn it around. So that's all good news too. School calendar is out, and of course, trying to match, if you think it's challenging to build our calendar, imagine taking 8 districts, different calendars, and trying to merge them into one that treats everybody as fairly as possible. But the new calendar is out if anybody would like to see it. I already talked about the job fair, right? Oh, and then we get the Student Connection every month, and this month's feature at Cog Heights is Krissa Tritterosolis.
Carissa Trissarolis. She's in the
Trissarolis.
cosmetology program.
Cosmetology. This is our second cosmetology student of the month. And the first cosmetology student of the month, anytime you want to see how well she's doing, just check my head, because she is my current barber. And if anybody else would like to take advantage of the beauty and the salon, you are all certainly welcome to come in and have your hair done, or take care of, get your nails, or any of the other services that they offer. I can give you a price list. I am guaranteeing you it will be half or less that you are paying anywhere else. They take a little longer because you're going to have a student who's going to be watched and instructed, so it may take a little longer. But you'll have an opportunity to see how that department does its business, and it's very interesting. So, anyhow, I think that's all I had on the Career Center, unless somebody has some questions. Carolyn, do you want to enlighten us about the BEST committee?
Mr. Sopacki asked me to report on the best committee as a member in attendance, supervision, building excellence and success together committee that met last week. It focused on continued discussion about property tax reform issues, its relevance to our school district, and strategies and approaches regarding communication to our community. And that presentation is available on our website.
Right. And it was a long and it was a very interesting meeting. A lot of it, as an active board member, obviously a lot of that was repetitious for me, but there are a lot of people, including 3 councilmen from Brooklyn Heights. I think there were 3 councilmen from Brooklyn Heights, at least 2.
You had 2, and then you had 1 from Cuyahoga Heights.
Yeah, that's right, 1 from Cuyahoga. So we had 3 council members there, and the 2 board members, which is the maximum we can have at any of those meetings. And I thought it was well attended, and I think the council members had their eyes opened a little bit.
Yeah, I think the challenge continues to be, how do we, as a school district, communicate, it's not the right word, advocate for our school district without crossing a threshold that may get us in very specific hot water with the Auditor of State's office or the Attorney General's office. And that's going to continue to be the challenge, because we can talk about things after they've happened, but when they haven't happened yet, we have to be very specific and stick to our facts and data, and people don't enjoy data like we do. The facts are boring, unless they're about kids' accomplishments, which that should not be boring. But that doesn't mean you're educating people on what happens when property tax is eliminated. So, and if you get too far into the weeds and you upset the wrong people, then you can find yourself under a license review pretty quickly in our position. So I think that's going to be the continuing challenge. So we'll use the mechanisms that we have to do that internally, but how do you get that out? I'm glad there were council members, because that's really where the discussions have to start happening.
Right.
Is it the city and village, township government levels. Because school districts, we're just complainers.
Right. Are you still trying to go to village council meetings? We did that for a while.
We haven't really, I mean, in my time here, and again, I had very limited, that just wasn't my lane back then. I don't know how much Tom went. I'd have to ask
Yeah.
Tom how much he went. I know he did go from time to time. I don't
Yeah.
know how frequently. I know we did a lot during the levy.
Right.
We went and we did that. And I did mention that, I'm willing to start doing that again. But I feel like you almost have to be, I don't say invited, but I'm not just gonna show up every quarter and just talk about the school, unless the village wants it. And I think
Mhm.
that's where I just need to work with the mayors and the village council
Right.
folks to see if that's of value, to give a
Right.
state of the schools presentation. Maybe once a year is all they need, or maybe they need it more frequently. So it's, not to drag on the meeting, I know I talked about this at a prior meeting, that schools and local governments are really in the same fight here, but we just don't know what issues are important to each other,
Right.
because nobody gets those two bands together to play. And until that starts happening, we may be advocating for very different things. And like the inside millage, there was the talk last spring of eliminating all inside millage. I was receiving that information and sending it to the mayors. This is how much you're going to lose. This is
Right.
very real. And when the mayors advocated, that came off the plate.
Mm-hmm.
If it was just us doing it, or just affecting us, then I don't know how many people would have paid attention to it. But once it started to get oh, wait a minute, this is our police, this is our fire, our EMS, our road services, and things like that, all of a sudden, it became real for more than just the schools. So we all have to be on the same page. But
Right.
that's the challenge, is to figure out what are those common grounds.
Yep. True. Okay, anybody have anything else want to contribute at this point? Moving on to possible future agenda items, anyone?
I think Carolyn still probably wants a presentation at some point on you mentioned the capital improvement plan update or something. So we'll make sure we note that.
Okay.
We'll get that, as soon as we get it organized internally, we will provide that sometime this spring.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Moving on to section 17, should be noted the Board of Education members received their agenda several days prior to the actual meeting and have had opportunity to study it and ask questions and so on. Upcoming regular meetings, all which will be here at 6 p.m. in the Monterey Media Center. Monday, March 16th, a regular meeting with students of the month, by the way, and pictures. Monday, April 13th, that's such a big gap, I hesitated to read the
There's a
date.
spring break in between all
I
that,
know.
that shifted everything.
Right,
And then we wanted to make sure we were kind to Mr. Rossi's schedule, because I know he's got commitments every other Monday, so that's how it fell, and that's okay, we still get 2 meetings in April.
right. And then April 27th being the second meeting, which would again be the regular meeting with students of the month. So at this point, we are going to move into executive session. I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session pursuant to ORC 2122G1 to consider employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges and complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or individual, unless that employee requests a public hearing. I've made the motion. May I have a second, please?
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Deca. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Suchak?
Aye.
Mrs. Decker?
Aye.
Mrs. Apathy?
Aye.
Ms. Majeska?
Aye.
Mr. Rossi?
Motion passes 5-0. It is 7:45.